a 6-page research paper.
We're just going to build the platform.
How's it going, everybody? My name's Dev.
That's the challenge.
Support equals support.
I'm trapped in New Mexico, you know, and
Stay beautiful. Stay beautiful. Stay beautiful.
Another statement coming out from Facebook today, it said that they sold about $100,000 of advertisements to what they call inauthentic accounts operated out of Russia during the campaign. Facebook says they've shared this information with investigators. Are you concerned that these ads may have deliberately targeted voters in some of those key swing states?
We, I think, already knew the Russians were using paid social media trolls to try to influence the election, try to sow discord. This certainly confirms that finding. It's a lot of money.
Are you concerned that that may just be the tip of the iceberg? There were other operations involving Russians in the U.S. presidential election?
Well, this is just one platform. We need to find out what is the evidence with respect to other social media platforms like Twitter, for example. What kind of internal analyses have these other companies done? Were there things that they missed earlier on when they didn't believe that this activity had necessarily occurred?
But currently, Google doesn't have a camera in every bedroom or every home. It does have a phone in millions of people's pockets, though.
We know that Google is tracking us. We agree to it when we set up our phones. So we wanted to figure out what exactly Google is learning about us throughout the day. So here's what we're going to do. We have two identical phones. The only difference between these two phones is this one is in airplane mode. Both of the phones lack a SIM card, and they haven't been set up to access any Wi-Fi networks. So for all intents and purposes, these phones have no connection to a data network. We're going to keep them with us throughout the day. And while I travel around DC, we're going to figure out just what Google is finding out about me.
Google's business model is simple. Collect data on its users and then use that data to sell targeted ads. It's a business model called surveillance capitalism. But does that critical data collection work even when your phones aren't connected? Within minutes, the numbers rolled in. The phone that wasn't on airplane mode registered more than 100 locations, 130 activities, and even 152 barometric readings. As soon as it hooked up to our Wi-Fi, it transmitted 300 kilobytes of data straight to Google. The phone even logged our exact locations.
Now you may notice what's missing here is the exact route that we took, but it got that data too. It knows when I got out of the car.
The metadata has a time log down to the very second, tracking everything when they think that you're walking, riding, and yes, even getting out of the car.
Okay, so you're thinking, this isn't a big deal. I'll just put my phone in airplane mode. Yeah, we thought of that too. This is the other phone that we had with us that no SIM card also remained in airplane mode the entire time.
The phone with airplane mode activated actually logged more locations and activities than the other phone, and it also transferred hundreds of kilobytes of data to Google as soon as it was activated.
Why, number one, does Google need all this information? We can answer that in the fact that 85 or 86% of your revenue comes from advertising, so we know you manipulate the data in some ways. However, can you explain what you do to minimize this data, which is generally an accepted standard practice among those who collect data?
Our goal is, but we are providing, for example, if we are providing you a service like Gmail, which we have done for 15 years, that data, we need to store it for our users, so they expect us to. So we are trying hard to match users' expectations. We don't need, our data for advertising, as I said earlier, most of it comes from just the keywords you type. And so, we need minimal data to do advertising. We give you options to turn ads personalization off. We store most of the data we do today to help give users the experience they want, and that's what we're trying to do.
If you think about it, like how much we depend on that, is there going to be a day where it turns on us?
It would have to have a will and a motivation first, and I guess the question is, what would be its motivation? And could it become self-aware?
Don't you think a will would have to be like something programmed in though? Like
the programmers
exactly.
will. The programmers' craziness You know what I mean?
You think the programmers are just gonna come down like the fist of God on us? And be like, oh
it might
yeah, we're
happen.
you know,
It
hey, how's
might.
it going, everybody? It's Dev here. You know what we do. Coach B, you know who it be. He's out here giving a salute. I don't know what this is, but maybe he's got an itch on his forehead. He's getting it itched off. And our guy, the marketing whiz, Kyle Dammann, is here with us today. Kyle, introduce yourself. Tell the people a little bit about what you do.
Hey everybody, great to be here. Thank you guys for having me on. So we were already getting started here. We jumped the gate a little, and I think we ended on a great topic of what are computers capable of today, and what can be done with technology. And I've always been fascinated by this. By day, I'm a corporate digital marketer, and I've managed strategy for a lot of big companies, and you learn things about what the power of that is, and also what the limitations are. But I think it's something we all need to be aware of in terms of how marketing is swaying our choices, and how it's affecting perhaps public opinion, and people who can understand those patterns could have, I don't know if you want to call it an unfair advantage, but definitely will give somebody an advantage. And I think the Obama campaign was one of the first digitally driven campaigns, and I think he owes a fair bit of his success to that as far as getting elected. And I have not up to date as much with the Trump campaign, but what I am up to date with is how to use marketing several steps ahead to influence decisions that you don't even know you're going to make yet. So, it's an interesting world that I believe needs handled with discretion and integrity. And right now it's a wild west. There's marketers out there doing all kind of things, good, bad, ugly. And it's by and large a field without regulation at this point. And if the money's being spent to sway elections, it's an interesting topic, isn't it, in terms of where balances are.
I wanted to jump onto something that I heard you say, because this is something new to me, what you said about Obama's campaign was the first use of digital marketing. Can you give some examples of that? Because I was pretty young during Obama's campaign. The only time I got on the internet was to play Webkins and and video games. And when I got on the internet, it was to watch funny videos of my favorite SpongeBob cartoons, but instead they replaced certain words with curse words. So, can you tell me about the Obama campaign and how it used digital marketing?
Well, as an elder millennial, I have to teach you kids a thing or two about instant messenger and so much
of the AIM.
Us kids.
I don't know about away messages and all that crazy stuff.
All right.
Coach, you probably remember some of that, right?
Yeah, I remember. I seen, and this is why we had you on today, Kyle. Matter of fact, welcome to Spooktober, as Dev is calling it. And it is very spooky that the things that can happen with the campaign and all that, the thing that can happen with what we see on the internet and stuff like that. I seen it from my eyes, the transition from nothing to the internet. And I seen how powerful it is. And either it can be a negative thing or a positive thing. And it can sway people if you're stuck on one thing. If you're only getting one information source, you're going to get brainwashed.
That's
if you know what I mean? So in saying that, is the power of it, if you just say you're a right, we're not going to say alt-right, but right, or you're just a left, you know what I mean, in this campaign, if you just listen to one thing all day, won't you just, is that a marketing ploy? Is that marketing? If you listen to that, how powerful that is?
I think you hit the nail on the head here, Coach, and this is where the crux of this is going. So let's just go there first, and I think it'll make for some great conversation. And I think when you come to realize that when you in some ways lean an extreme way, one way or the other, you open yourself up to being susceptible to bias and being susceptible to rhetoric, being susceptible to unbalanced facts, so to speak. And we live in an interesting age where more information is available than ever, but it seems like we're having a harder time coming to a consensus of a truth of what is true. If you listen to the Democrat side, you swear they have Trump dead to rights and that he's going to be going to jail soon. Well, it's been 6 years. He's eluded that for whatever reason. I actually am generally fairly politically neutral, and I believe in facilitating leadership and facilitating strong leaders, and that will create a good government. Like everything else above that is just noise to me. And most of the political experience, in my opinion, is basically just some layer of gossip where nobody really knows what they're talking about. They're just parroting what they saw on CNN or the Fox News or whatever their favorite channel is. So I'm calling for a true intelligent discussion based on the things that matter, not on the talking points that the politicians and the news agencies use to captivate your attention in strife, struggle, conflict, and all the other things that they know from an algorithmic standpoint that captivates your attention, keeps you in a state of stress, and will keep you watching longer. It's not their job to keep you healthy. It's their job to keep you watching longer, to sell you advertisements. It's not their job to inform you and help you be fair and balanced. It's their job to keep you watching longer and sell you advertisements. That's the difference.
That being said, do you think part of keeping you watching longer is trying to get you to they're trying to conform to your biases? Especially news outlets, say like Fox News and CNN, they want you to stick around because they want to hear about how those lousy Dems are doing this week and libs, and then on the other side, CNN wants to tell you about how what dog bowl Trump pissed in this week or what have you. You know, they just want to tell you about all these things that they're doing, and you have. And of course, the people say, "Oh yeah, I got to stick around. I wait till after the break when we show this," and they're like, "Oh yeah, we need to see that." Do you think that's part of it? The marketing of they're selling you the belief and the ideas, and they're reinforcing
It's actually
that
genius.
Marketing
is genius.
Business standpoint, actually, Coach, exactly. And Devin, to take your point here, I think politics is 40% entertainment, and I think 60% of it's quite serious and needs to be managed well and cared about. But there's a layer of froth on top of politics, and to me, it's like I'm looking to cut through that again. Just when you focus on facilitating good leadership and good leadership principles, the rest of the system kind of rights itself. However, when you're a news agency, and especially when you're a publicly traded company, the values you adhere to is bringing profit for the shareholders. And to develop profit for the shareholders as a news agency is you need eyeballs and attention. So some news agencies over the last 10 to 15 years, as the internet has come on and they don't know what to do or how to adapt to the model, they've had to pick they decided to pick one side or the other in terms of political bias. And that's what we see with the splitting, CNN, Fox News, et cetera. When I was a kid, and Coach, you can probably, reflect some of this as to growing up watching television because there wasn't, as much of an internet back then, that news wasn't quite as sensationalized as it is now. And there was kind of this one canned voice. And in some ways that was a benefit because it wasn't so inflammatory. But in other ways, you got a diluted message that was just spoon fed to you, and it wasn't comprehensive. It wasn't, you didn't have both sides to choose. So I don't know if that pointed to what you were saying, Devin, but I feel like it's evolving. I don't know if it's getting better or worse, but we have to know how to interact with it so it doesn't. Because if you get up in the morning and look at your headlines, you're going to be pissed off, scared, and angry long before you ever even start your job, and you can't create a productive workday when you're
scared or pissed off.
Yeah, definitely don't look at your phone. Don't look at your phone when you wake up, man. Just give yourself a minute and get it together. In saying that though, Kyle, for the people that don't know, because I had a conversation with Dev earlier in the day, and saying like how powerful marketing is, and what they say with the political thing, the Russian interference. Can we just say what that was? Like, can we point that out? Because I think a lot of people are just saying what we're saying right now. The rights are saying, no, there was no collusion. The left is just saying there was collusion, but nobody knows exactly what was going on, what we're saying happened.
Well, I think you're bringing up a very timely topic that actually just keeps coming up, and now we're seeing with there's allegedly a whistleblower that said about Trump was telling Georgia and other countries to investigate Biden for whatever the case may be. I'm not the most politically informed person, but I do try to keep up with the headlines to a degree, and the world has become so internationalized. Business has become so internationalized. We're now facing these edges of where government is becoming more internationalized, where other countries can actually affect our democratic process. And we're really in new territory here, aren't we? I don't know whether to say good, right, bad, wrong, whatever the case may be. But, okay, if this is the situation, what's a smart way forward? Maybe that's a conversation that we can build some thoughts around constructively.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of want to get to solutions and everything that we can do to help limit our negative influence or our influence by these marketing, whether it's corporations or politicians or what have you, so that way we can make more informed decisions. But I kind of want to say that for the towards the end of the show. But I was thinking about something that Ashley just said. Isn't it tacky of Facebook to allow this type of marketing, in quotations mark, on their platform? All money isn't good money. And this actually brings up a point that actually comes back to the Trump election that happened just recently. Because when they went back and looked for the collusion with Russia, they had found that Facebook had received about, I believe, and I shared it in the video before, but hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing from Russians, from people over in Russia, were paying for advertisements on Facebook in relation to the 2016 campaign for Trump and Hillary. Now, those things were pro-Trump or anti-Hillary, essentially, in their advertising origin. So I think it's interesting that these social media platforms would take that money and say, oh yeah, let's boost this, especially from a foreign country. So a foreign country is now polluting your social media, American social media, because they did target geographical areas like swing states and places such as that. So I think it's interesting to think about it and say, what's the power of marketing on a global scale, where not just things that you thought were internal, just within your country or just within your hometown, can be messed with from people from other countries or other states with their own intents, of course.
Yeah, I think, to me, where my thoughts keep going with this is that and this is what a marketer is looking for typically, and I find by and large that most digital marketers are ethical, but I'm sure there's some out there that are not. And we have this idea of, okay, what is trust, and how is it protected and preserved? And Facebook probably just didn't simply have a filter up for should we or shouldn't we take money X, Y, or Z? And hey, hundreds of thousands are rolling in, and we don't really care where it's from because there's no law that says we have to care. As a publicly traded company, it's our job to take the money that customers want to pay us. So it's almost like it's like a sin of being in new territory, not a sin, or like a violation of just being in new territory. We're in a Wild West where,
the frontier of internet.
No, hold on for a second though. Let's go back real quick, because I don't think we pinpointed, like when they're saying that the Russians, like Dev just said, everything that we're saying right now, that they gathered that together and they used a marketing strategy. Mm-hmm. Can we say that the platforms allowed that to happen? Or was it like it just, they were able to just jump in the algorithms and figure it out and then get it to where it needs to go? Or do we think that the platforms that we're sharing on, are they a problem? Because it's almost like a monopoly. Like you have to use them. So whatever message they really want out there, they're going to put it out there.
Right. Well, I think there's two layers to that, Coach. I think those are really good points. The one thing you want to think about is while it may have produced somewhat, so it may have produced a somewhat of an illegal outcome. But
was that Rob Z?
Yeah, that was Rob.
Rob Z to come over and say hi.
He said, he went to his office, man. I think he's got some stuff going. He's got some business he's got to handle. So we'll let Rob go handle biz. But I think what Kyle was saying was like, it's the frontier. I almost would compare it to, in a weird way, 9/11, in the sense that, look at Kyle's face. He's like, okay, explain. His face dropped. Like, what do you mean? How? What's that?
Go ahead and finish, and then I'll get into what I was going to respond from Coach.
Okay, what I was going to say is, you have the TSA, that an organization, all these that didn't really exist until those events came through, because they were like, oh my God, like we have to be prepared for this. Like no one thought about people hijacking the planes or driving them into the buildings or whatever, and then those things became. And I think that might be the case for Facebook. Didn't have any, like you said, they didn't have any repercussions or not repercussions, but rather things set in place to keep things like that from happening. And instead, that happened, and then hindsight, whenever it came through, like, oh my God, yeah, like these kind of things did interfere with the election. So,
yeah, I think that's a great analogy and a great metaphor of, hey, this has never happened before, and if you're, I don't keep up too much on political issues, but I am a student of history, and the one thing you realize if you look back far enough through even just written and known history for the last 6,000 years is that this entire thing that we're living in is very, very new. This technological age, and like this is all new territory, and it's Coach. What I was going to say to your point was, yes, I think there was somewhat. I don't know if it's criminal. Yes, it was criminal. I would say it's a criminal activity that happened with the infraction of Russia, if only by Facebook's omission or blindness of their current system. Now, however, that does not imply that there was criminal intent on the side of Facebook, but there probably was some criminal intent along that way somewhere. I think that's pretty obvious. So, should Facebook be the fall boy for that? I think, sometimes it's the biggest guy who holds the cards. He's still responsible at the end of the day, and I think Facebook had to pay quite a bit of money to to keep things happy with the government. I want to raise awareness to this inflammatory culture that exists within popular news outlets. It's all to incite these fear-based emotions, which keep your attention longer than you anticipate. In the sense that, and this goes back to the control in general that the news outlets use, that good marketers use, and people who understand messaging use to entrain and attract attention. You have this kind of concept of using inflammatory concepts, using they and them and those. And if you look at headlines and news, it sounds more like an MMA fight than it does any sort of political thing. Like Trump slams this, closes, slams, smacks. The adjectives that use are very UFC level kind of adjectives. And it's like, well, what kind of attention are they trying to attract? And I think, that the proof's in the pudding there.
Yeah, I think when I hear the word slams and like you said, a fight, I think it's because we're in this the tea culture, so to speak, where we're like, oh, spill the tea. What happened? What's the fight? What's the drama? What's the 411? Oh, he slammed these people. And especially if you're someone who likes that viewpoint, because I know I watch I'll watch atheist debates and stuff where they talk about with Christian people and whatnot, and they'll use words like Aaron Ra obliterates so and so, and it makes me be like, because I
they're
like
using
that.
great
I'm like, oh, I
adjectives.
want to see it. What'd you say, Coach?
They're using great adjectives to get us all worked up every day in the marketing.
Well, I mean, but you can tell they're clearly, whenever they follow it up with Donald Trump does adjective, like slams, beats, destroys somebody, and then follows that up with or destroys whatever it is, it usually incentivizes the people that hold the bias to come and watch or see or get a look at what's going on. And I wanted to go back to that thing saying about the interference with the election. Ashley Justice asks, can it be considered election interference if a bunch of advertisers did that? Do we think that could be considered interference? I think so, but at the same time, what if you're a person who owns a business in Russia, right? It has nothing to do with Donald Trump or anything. But you have your market isn't Russian people; it's Americans. You make you own one of those T-shirt printing shots over there that make the really crappy T-shirts that say "I love Jesus" or "I just ate a bigger fries" or "I heart farting." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they make those cheesy shirts for people over here in America, and then they got to market and target those market areas here. So, are we saying that maybe other countries can't market over here, or they have to be vetted so we know what they're trying to market to this country?
I think that's a great point, and that comes up with my medical experience in terms of marketing large medical organizations. And you do some marketing for a smaller medical organization, and they have 3 or 4 roles that you can't go around. But when you work for places that have 1,000 employees and more, they're a bigger target for legal issues too. So they their belt's even tighter, and they say, listen, an organization of our size, we can't even go close to this. Well, in other situations, maybe smaller organizations, you could. So what I'm getting at is each industry has its own sort of regulations and requirements, right? And I think, and if you watch the Zuckerberg, the hearing and the testimony that happened, I think was that earlier this year? Was it springtime? It was several months ago. Do you guys recall when that happened? When he was kind of
he looked like an AI robot.
Exactly.
He was just yes, no. Yeah. Yeah. That was weird. That was weird.
Whole thing, and I was left with 2 impressions. One, that Zuckerberg was not entirely forthright with what he knew in terms of Cambridge Analytica and what they were doing over there, kind of under his nose and that sort of thing. There was one, I don't feel like he was entirely forthright, but I also don't feel that, what exactly is Facebook responsible for in that? Maybe that's another sub point, but here's the main point. Almost nobody in that house that was grilling Zuckerberg had any damn bit of an idea of what technology is and where it was going. Just knowledge gap. And you know, we stand
out
it
of
up.
touch. They were out of touch with technology.
And I don't mean that as a judgmental thing. I'm just going to say this, and I'll just shut up for a minute. I don't mean that as a judgmental thing, because we stand in unprecedented times where technology has, like, you know, how many thousand years ago, whatever you want to call it, we were like in dirt huts, like hunter gathering, like, you know, that wasn't that long ago. All of a sudden we find ourselves in a mechanized age, and then we find ourselves in a silicon-induced technology age where everything's evolving so rapidly. Like, we're just standing in incredible times. So I'm not saying that as a point to blame anybody in government, because I don't think that's helpful in terms of building a strong democracy or republic or whatever it is that we're building here. But what is helpful is the saying that there's clearly a gap there. So I think it's up to smart people like us
to bridge it.
To bridge it.
I gotta
bridge
we gotta bridge that gap.
Bridge the gap.
It all comes down to that, doesn't it?
Yeah. So in saying that, like, I know the power of it because I'm the type of person that falls asleep. I have to have something playing in the background. So it's the TV. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm shouting out, you know what I mean? My thoughts are on the advertisements that I heard during my sleep. That's how powerful that it is. And moving on to where it's at right now, like, when you can't get away from it no more. It used to be like, from our Dev's a little too young to understand this, but when we just had TV, like, we had to actually go turn the TV on. But right now we just grab our phone and then it's lighting up, bling, 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 bling. It's saying, look at this, look at this, look at this. So it's so powerful that it can change your life in a good way or a bad way. And I think, like, if you don't find, and I think that's where I'm going to go back to that, the platforms of it. Like, if they're nerfing good things, like we had this conversation before, Dev, where they're like, people are like, well, a good deed, you shouldn't show a good deed. You shouldn't record that you just handed this, you know, this homeless guy $5, but I should see the homeless, you fighting a guy for free. You know what I mean? And it's not doing anything. You know what I'm saying? So that's how powerful it is. It's so negative. So if we're able to grab the positive stuff and show it there, and so I think that's where the platforms come in. The platforms have responsibility for that, because those algorithms are pushing out ads that are going to make them money. And it's mostly negative, and they're trying to stay away from positive stuff. So, in saying that, everybody needs to just go look at research, period. Research yourself. Research everything you're looking at, both sides, and then come up with a conclusion. Don't listen to your phones and your computers.
Yeah, well, like we said, things are being targeted based upon the things that we do every day. What did Ashley just say? Sadly, positivity doesn't sell. And you know something? In a lot of ways, I can agree with that, because I think negative things demand action. That you take action. When you say, oh, there's this, whenever they create a fear or an anger or a need, you know, those things require action. When you have like these positive whatever, you know, it just feels good. It makes you feel good. So you're like, oh, I don't have to take action. I mean, sometimes they inspire. I mean, I could tell you that things I've seen or watched have inspired me, but I'm not sure if I could say for sure that negativity for sure is the top seller. But I agree with that in the sense that positivity probably isn't the highest seller. It's more about negativity.
Positivity's getting nerfed, bro.
Yeah,
it's not selling.
Well, yeah, well, the thing is, what I think is people
look at
hating.
hip hop.
You get people that hate
sells.
that you're doing good, and they want to say, "Oh, how dare you insult by giving homeless people bread and recording it or whatever it is." And it's like, and I understand it because maybe they don't want to be, but I'm sure some of these people didn't just walk out with the camera. They had the conversation first. They said, hey, I want to film us doing a good deed. Like, would you guys be okay with that? I'm going to give you guys some stuff, and hopefully this inspires more people to help and, you know, participate.
And I think that's what it should be. I think that's the power of it. We see so much negativity. We see cop shooting, racist shit, all kinds of shit all through our day. Why would we say to somebody that's saying, hey, I'm going to film that I'm going to help these homeless people out and feed them? That's just stupid to me, yo.
Yeah.
It's very stupid.
Yeah. Kyle, what do you think?
Well, I think it goes back to the, when you really understand psychology on a deep level, and if you want to be a good marketer, you really just have to understand human behavior, and that's my mastery of study in the last 10 years. And when you understand how the human being is wired, primarily, as you said, Devin, to respond to negative stimuli, it's just a fact of survival. Like, whatever your beliefs are in the past as far as evolution or creation or whatever. I mean, we are wired or built, designed, or evolved to survive, on this planet primarily. And then beyond that, we tend to be nice humans who go to church on Sundays too, occasionally. So
we go to church on Sunday.
Always, every Sunday. I go to church.
Go ahead, Kyle. My fault, Kyle. I gotta throw jabs at Dev every time I can.
He talk about religion. He's like, hey, have you going to church? Absolutely. With that girl I told you that I was going to go to church with every Sunday if she asked.
I gotta throw jabs. Didn't mean to cut you out, Kyle.
No, that's all right. I think that's a good point. And, this is where I get excited, is because, again, we are at a time where we're just in unprecedented times. And if you can figure out the new patterns of kind of this technological world that we're walking in, then you can kind of have your own free check for your career, for your life, or whatever, because the business school you were taught how to run a business doesn't really exist anymore. And this is where my work's getting into in terms of helping entrepreneurs and business owners build better brands and businesses. That's really what I love to do. That's what I have my experience in. And when you understand that we're in these unprecedented times, and what I really mean by that is, I'm thinking about something you said earlier, Devin. But we're talking about church and the fact that, we were raised to be a certain way. We're like in this transition period of being the ages that we're in right now. And, we have this transition period where the roles of the old culture that got us through the last 6,000 years to here has been one way. And literally that's all changing in less than 100 years. And we're all faced and forced to find these, do we spend our time and money going to church and other things, or does that really even matter anymore? Is that relevant? We all feel some sort of call to spirituality. What is that new institution? And I think by and large, the definition of our age is that all the institutions are being shaken, tested, and shaken down to see what's necessary of them. Do we need a giant government? Do we need an oppressive religion? Do we need super strict social structures that have gotten us to here, but will they serve us in the future? And what does a successful human look like in the next 50, 60 years of their life? That's kind of the question I'm fascinated about.
Yeah, that actually sketches me out a little bit. But I mean, we see things where, those old, I would say there's always going to be they're going to try to return to this old thing that's been the kind of the style of history. I think even if we were going to say things like governments, things like religious institutions, I don't think we'll ever see those things go away for a long time from now. I mean, yeah, I could see in the future that these things will eventually get smaller and less of, where we're going to say, well, no, we're going to put systems in place where we don't need these, and we don't need these governing bodies, and we don't need these institutions.
The dial, not the switch, right? Like, we'll need more of them or less of them to dictate a peaceful society.
I think they're becoming more relevant. I think people are seeing what it is because we have the technology and the marketing that you're able to go towards what you want to understand. Mm-hmm. Like, you're able to get the information at it before you weren't what our history was built on. We had to go to libraries, or you
had to go get a book.
And even then,
we phone and get the information. We can get the information, and I think they're tactically adapting to how the information is getting to us. Like nerfing, Dev. Like you guys say in that world, nerfing. There's information, like I see it every day, like just going down my timeline, like seeing that there's things that they want me to see, and then there's things that they don't want me to see. You know what I mean? You can see that the way that they're marketing. And I think we have to focus on these platforms because it's to me, it's monopolizing. Like so many, like how they did with the television, you know what I mean? Giving out all those ads and everything to that. They're doing it with certain platforms. They're saying, this is the information we're going to let out. We don't want this information. We're going to nerf that and all that. And I think that's happening. I think we need to challenge them.
Like nerf, you mean like bury it or not bring it up to the top?
Or soften it up. Like they
Oh,
soften
yeah.
up the information. Like they give you bits and pieces, but not the full lead. They give you the dart, but not the full metal jacket.
I don't think they put it in the algorithm. Period. They're nerfing it straight away. They're throwing it away. It'll come because that's where you're going, and they haven't figured that out yet, like how to totally do it, or they're just doing it enough so you know what I mean, so that you can't come out and be outraged about it. They're like, you're still getting the information. I think they give you the information that they want you to have, and they control that. The platforms. You know what I mean? Think about that. Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, all of them. All of them are sitting at a table with rich people that are allowing them to be rich, but they want them to do this. We have to say that.
Right.
I think I think it goes again to look at draw the line through history in terms of previously there were maybe 2 to 3 news outlets that all of our news came through, and those were dictated by I don't even know who. And then at least now in this age, most of these platforms, at least up until now, were sort of built and developed by genius entrepreneurs that are just fairly benign in the sense that they just want to build a good platform. And are there more nefarious intentions there? You have to be. It's tricky when you start guessing other people's intentions. You just sort of have to look to their actions and see what kind of results they're being produced and if they're responsive. I tend to, this is the Halloween episode, and I'm sure we'd like to
It's
talk
spooky
about,
out here.
but, I'm careful to do that to people in real life that I haven't met, even at the highest levels like Zuckerberg or whatever. I think it's incredibly challenging to truly tell the true intentions of a person, except for the results that are produced in their actions. Devin,
yeah, I get that. Everybody's like speculation and all that bullshit, but everybody speculates to get to a goal, right? If you put a goal on a board and say, I'm going to be there, you're speculating what you're doing to get there. So why are we not doing this and holding? I think we need to start holding these people accountable. The shit that we're using right now, Facebook, YouTube, all of that, we need to start holding them accountable for these things. It's just like, to me, it's very simple. Like, if there's no product, there's no demand. It's very simple. It's very simple. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where marketing lies.
Yes.
There would be if there was no product, there would be no marketing, right?
Yeah.
They're supplying, and they're controlling the way that they put it in here. Let's not be like, to me, let's just not be like we're sitting here being jackasses and not really looking at what's really going on. At some point, we're going to have to stand up and say, hey, man, F Facebook, F Instagram, F my phone, and go back to the way of talking to people and getting in people's, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, my thing on it is what Coach is saying is, like, now think about Area 51. Anybody remember Area 51? We're all going to Area 51. They can't stop us all. And out of however many million people said they were going, like 9,000 showed up. So, like, this is all I'm saying is, like, what you're saying is almost borderline unrealistic, because you're going to say, we got to say screw Facebook. But, like, how many people are going to, like, because there's a bunch of people that would, if they were watching, say we had millions of viewers, they'd be like, yeah, screw Facebook. And then you know what they would do, like, over the next course of, like, maybe a few days? Oh, man, like, that means I have to delete
Coach
my Facebook.
was wrong.
And then I want them to be able to talk to my
Fuck
aunt,
Coach.
because my aunt uses Facebook. And then my son and my mom. You know what? As much as I want to say screw Facebook, I got to keep Facebook. And that's probably the mentality people are at. Because they can't be like, all right, mom, aunt, son, I need you guys to all go to MySpace so we can communicate with each other.
Good idea. Let's bring MySpace back.
They already tried it.
Let's lead the charge to bring MySpace back.
That's where it's at.
Yeah, but hey, I did want to read out some chats here we got from Ashley. Ashley says, Kyle is a great guest. I'm glad I tuned in.
Yeah, she's down there in Pittsburgh. We'll shoot you information. You guys can sit down and talk. She's sitting down with us, and we're trying to help Ashley build her brand, partnership with her. She's an excellent person. She's working hard, and she's down your way. You guys might want to sit down and have coffee or something.
Yeah, sounds good.
And she asked a good question. She says, where do you think the future of marketing is headed, Kyle? With technology advancing so rapidly. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that gets into the artificial intelligence subject, which I know you guys have an upcoming talk about that. So I'll be tuning in for sure to hear what you guys say there. And I think it's really coming to automation in the sense that when you're on a project, you start to see patterns in messaging, and then if you have patterns, you can always automate those patterns. So communication processes, we know the human the human being, as if I'm not one or something. We know
the human being. So, well, I think to be a marketer or something like that, I feel like you have to take yourself out of the equation, like the humanity of it, and look at it like that. Go ahead.
It's very true. It's actually a lesson in empathy, because if you don't empathize emotionally with your audience, like, you'll never be able to communicate well to them. So believe it or not, marketing is an exercise in empathy, but for people who do it right. There might be white hat marketers, there might be black hat marketers, but I don't go down that angle too much. So,
hey, question. How many people, like percentage? Let's just guesstimate. Let's speculate for a second. I know everybody's looking at facts, but how many people do you think is not using social media?
I mean, it's definitely well over half of humans. Probably 80%, I would think, in modern societies are probably using it in the varying platforms. There's charts and graphs where Facebook has a major market share. Instagram's, I think, a close second or third. YouTube's up there. But to get to your original question with Ashley, Devin, is that, with marketing, where it's going in the future is, you need 5 to 20 impressions to trigger a buying decision. In my opinion, with marketing, the only thing you can help somebody do is arrive to a better decision than they could have made before they met you. So you just be informative, you be open and transparent as you can be with the client that you're working with or that I'm working with, and you just inform them, help them become a better educated version of the customer you want them to become. And that's just by giving them good information that's concise and helpful. Most marketing is that. However, when we get into political marketing, we understand that you can use these same processes of building trust and rapport to hack that process of trust building, and then sway people to potentially do things in the elections that some would argue is not within their free choice, or there's some degree of manipulation, or I would argue that you can't be manipulated unless you're already deeply biased on some level, which is, I think we're sort of being asked to transcend that as humanity right now, in the sense that we have to shed our biases, or you're going to end up like Weinstein or any of the other, people that have been, terrors to society and have been brought out into the street because of it. And thankfully we live in an age where that's happening more and more.
I feel like you become a puppet. That's what I was going to say. I feel like you become a puppet where you have no control over your own life, really, because people are feeding you information, and you really don't make your own decisions at that point. You're just based off whatever the tube or whatever the Facebook, whatever the post, whatever the ads, whatever you're watching are telling you, that you've become a puppet to that basically propaganda, essentially.
Can you cleanse from it? Can you get up and survive and cleanse from we already know. Like, we're not saying get rid of social media, because that's not going to happen. You have to adapt to how things are going, but the dependent on it, you have to adapt. Is there going to be like pop-up rehabs for social media here pretty soon? I truly believe it, because people are looking for validation every day when they pick this phone up, and they don't even know it. Because I catch myself where I'll just put it down for a minute. When I say boycott it, I don't mean don't use it. I'm saying you manage the time, discipline your time, because like you guys just said, you could be targeted, brainwashed and all that type stuff in one thing if you overuse it. Is that fair to say? Like, you can just put it down for a little bit and be a human?
I think social media is a form of wealth, it's an asset for a society, and it's the measure of a society for how they use it for better or worse. And you ask anybody who started with nothing and have come into money and come into financial resources, they'll tell you that money does not change who you are, it amplifies who you are. And I think social media is doing the same thing in a lot of ways, where it's amplifying who we all are, and for the better and the worse. And it's almost like it's forcing an evolution in humanity. And I think at this time, we are, as a human species, being called to some sort of new level of evolution that we all kind of feel, but nobody really quite knows what it is. It's we're all becoming this super conscious organism that we're all connected, and we're all, all wired together in this internet age. And Coach, I think it's worth what you're saying in the sense of, what if this all goes away tomorrow? What's the plan B, right? Like we should probably at least consider that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, I don't know if, and this is a conversation we have, I don't know if they have the social skills to interact. Like, I know people that you have to call me first, or no, you don't have to. Don't call them. You can't call them. They don't know how to voice. You have to text me first. You gotta send me a message, and you gotta send. And first, you gotta send them a message so you can call. And then once you call them, maybe then can you hang out? Maybe, possibly. I don't know. But I'm thinking in my head. I'm just saying, I just know too many people where it's like that, where it's just like, sometimes the only reason why I message people is to get a meeting with them or to hang out with them or see them. I do not. At any point, I don't want to just have a texting conversation. What's the point of that? To me, anyway. I was like, I'd rather talk to you face to face. And I think that would be if the internet went away.
If you got a special female in your life, you kind of want to send her a little special
text.
Right,
of course, whenever you're not around. But I'm saying, like, you're only sending her that message because you want to say, let's get together later. Do you know what I mean? Like, but people are like, there's a whole generation of people that are completely content with having internet friendships or relationships, which again are fine. I have long distance relationship friends that, there's no way I could ever interact with them from, up close because they live in Tennessee or they live in Denmark or whatever. But, it's still like the people around us I don't think they're working cohesively together. And I think that's a downfall of social media. And that's why we did Bridging the Gap. That's one of the reasons why we did this show, is because of that, because the lack of communication. And we're trying to show, look, Kyle, come on the show, Coach and me, we could all three of us, all different kinds of dudes of different backgrounds, could have
a weird conversation.
Have conversations.
Hey, Kyle, let me ask you this question. In all your years of marketing, that's what you've been in, right? For many years, like that's how you get your bread and butter, right? Is there ever been a time where morally you were like, I'm not doing this?
There would be times, immediate answer is no, because I always recognized that I was in control of the messaging that I put out. Now, there were certainly times where I bought and paid a lot of money for a program or traveled a lot of miles to learn from somebody or go to a seminar where I was not going to subscribe to their version of, I think you could call it persuasion, you could call it, there's certain ways to say to subconsciously build rapport with somebody. Like there's these guys that get into like the hacking aspect of it, of conversion hacking and persuasion. And if you want to hypnotize your audience and turn them into zombies and get them to buy things from you, then you're going to be left with zombies for customers. And good luck with that karma, because I just don't play that level. And since we're in the Halloween episode,
it's spooky out here.
It's spooky. Woo.
And those guys are out there, but they're not. There's not that many of them. By and large, here's the nice thing about modern society, especially with technology amplifying this, is that you generally have to walk. We all are walking around without clothes on, in a sense that society is very open and transparent these days. And I think a Halloween costume could be no costume at all, right? That counts.
Yeah.
So the birthday suit, right? So we're all living in this transparent, naked age where you really can't throw stones because we all live in this glass house. And by and large, people, I think the statistics will reinforce this, that by and large people are peaceful, cooperative, and just want to get on with their day and raise their family and have a good time. And thankfully thankfully we haven't encountered anything crazy like we did in the 1900s where this socialist, fascist, whatever you want to call it, urge was just swallowing the whole planet. And whoever, God help us, we don't ever have to go back to that kind of situation. But I wonder, what would we do in that, if that came back, and hopefully it doesn't. And, there's a lot of America bashing that goes on these days, but I don't know if the world would have recovered from that if it wasn't for the resources and the power of what the U.S. had to deliver or had to offer, not Germany, but, the peaceful nations.
All of Europe.
Exactly. They would have been done. And, Japan and Russia and Germany would have ganged up together, and all of Europe would have been gone if it wasn't for the American resources. However, at the same time, I'm not saying we're like, king of the mountain or whatever, but there's too much America bashing going on, in my opinion. I think in this country, we have a tremendous opportunity to continue to be the leaders of the free world in some crazy technological age that we're living in.
But isn't that some egg on? Don't we need to own some egg on our face because of the moves we make? Not as American people, because we're not making the moves. We actually allow people. We vote in that system to allow that to happen. But the behind closed doors things, don't we need to own that some things we need to stay the fuck out of? Basically, is what I'm saying. We need to stay out of some things and handle things on our front. And you know what I mean, and take egg on our face.
You guys are going to talk. If you get me into talking about history, you might never get me to stop. So I'm trying to
go.
Concise,
just go,
and I'll keep it entertaining. Pull me back in, Devin, if I'm getting too far out to sea.
Oh no, we're fine. This is a free form discussion. I mean,
bridging the gap.
This is bridging the gap, man. So go ahead.
The policies of our leaders in America, specifically over the last 80 years, as per my perception, is that it's been about making sure that there aren't tyrants can't get a foothold sufficient to allow what happened in World War II, in World War I, because there's some sort of swinging effect where if that becomes popular, a full half of the population will swing to that, and then we could have a fascist uprising on our hands again, and it will change faces. It won't be from a Nazi party. It won't be from whatever. It could be from an environmental movement. You know, these fascist things can take hold in different areas that are more populist oriented, and that can get a little sketchy. Now, fortunately, we have a government that's evolved over the last 250 years to move slowly. Government, by definition, should not move quickly because it needs to absorb populist movements so it doesn't get turned upside down and become susceptible to populist and fascist movements. And what I mean by that is that even though the democratic system is slow, and you could definitely point a lot of fingers at the nation building that we've been doing through the Bush, Reagan, and all these other guys, what they've been doing, you know, in other countries. And certainly there's a lot of blood on a lot of people's hands, and I wouldn't want to judge any side of that because that's not easy to make those decisions when you.
Kyle, we lost you. I think you unplugged your mic.
Am I there?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so that was my history rabbit hole, but I'm saying, okay, so what do we recognize that the last 80 years has been about not allowing fascism to take hold in whatever way it looks like it might. So we proactively go into other countries and try to set up governments, and we quickly realize that not everybody's ready for democracy, or maybe that's not the way they should be governed.
We shouldn't force it on nobody.
Yeah, I mean, it's
economic, and we shouldn't walk around saying that's prideful. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, saying America is because we're going over there forcing people to do our will. That's not prideful to me.
Yeah, I like that. I like that approach.
And also, your people have to be ready for that way of thinking, I believe. You know, I find that with the Middle Eastern countries, they're stuck in a theocratic-esque government where, you know, I mean, they still believe in, they let religious matters govern a lot of what they do. And I think that is limiting in your thought process because, like, you know, things such as democratic things things that are, you know, in a democracy, we
somebody's at my door. Hold on.
Okay, go ahead. But things in democracies are compromised. We compromise on things, you know. Like, I don't believe in that there is a God, right? Like, you know, that's evident. And there's other people that believe there is some kind of God, a Christian God, whatever God you have. But in a democracy, we have to compromise on things where we have to say, you know, in order to have freedom of religion, we have to have freedom from religion and let people do that. And I think that's a big part of it. So then when you have countries like over in the Middle East who they have a book of fables and fairy tales, that's what I think anyway, that tells them, well, this is how you have to live your life. And then you try and impose a new way of living that contradicts what the masses of that particular country believe, or, you know, or not even maybe even the masses of the people, but the generation in power believe. Then you're going to make it very hard for that actual change to stay, because you're going to say, oh, here's democracy, guys, and then they're going to kind of force them to try it out because you take over their government or what have you. And then once that moment is gone, then they're like, okay, we're going back to what we were doing because, you know, and that's just the truth of it. And I think it's like the horse to water scenario. You can take a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I think that's the key. Is sometimes I think America likes to try and take the horse to the water and be like, all right, and then like force their face in it. But, you know, they're not going to sip from the water.
Well, and that's, you know, their fabric of that culture, to reflect, Devin, what you were saying is just straight up different than ours. And I think, you know, even from September 11th, in terms of pulling lessons from that, and, you know, what do we do about that, if anything? And those are the questions that we're kind of asking ourselves as a country. And I've had the privilege to work with some fairly devout Muslims in my experience, and I find that they're generally no more one way or another about anything, statistically speaking, than we are. While they might come from a more religious paradigm, you never know what their societies could bring in the next 20 to 50 years of some form of evolved government that we hadn't even considered that might end up working way better as they evolve. And I don't think there's any question that people in our country that live in remote areas, such as in people in their countries that live in remote areas, tend to be hyper religious or hyper, what do you want to call that?
Extremism.
Yeah, a little bit
not
more
just
that.
religious extremism, but people could be
anything extreme is
really.
wrong. Yeah, anything extreme is wrong. Just like marketing, like we're talking about right now. If we do it extremely, like we're going, of course you're trying to make a living, but if it gets morally fucked up, you have to make the decision to be, you know what I mean, a good person and say, I'm not going to do that. I don't need that money. All money ain't good money. You know what I mean? And I think that's where the marketing goes so hard today, where what we talked about earlier about nerfing and the analytics. It's going towards a negative way. It's going towards, you think about it. Like, how many conversations have you had, Kyle, where you're talking to somebody and then you see an ad on your phone?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's horrible.
This, what you just said, Coach, is an amazing thing. Okay, so we were talking about that trial with the Zuck. And Zuck said straight out, no, we don't listen to your phone conversations to market to you, right?
Okay.
And we'll get more into this in the AI discussion next week that we have, guys. So shameless plug to our AI discussion on October 14th. Okay. Anyway, as I was saying, we'll talk about that more. But this was so interesting to me because he flat out lied. Because they had that a couple months ago, and then they've been investigating it, and Facebook has paid private contractors to decrypt and decipher vocal information from our phones. Kind of like how what's that app where you sing into it or you hum the beat and it finds the song for you? It was like SoundHound. I forget what the hell it was called. Shazam. And just like Shazam, but instead it's looking for keywords to sell you advertisements, Coach. And so that means that they're figuring this out because Facebook is trying to develop an AI that can hear your conversations through your phone and then also market you things. Coach, we have a great example of this happening to us where we were at it was
weird.
Remember the interview we had with Devin Fagan? Young guy, wrote a book. Shout out to Devin Fagan. Go buy his book, by the way. It's a great book, The Other Side of Atlas. Check it out. Shameless plug, again, because that's what we do. Looking out for our day ones. But anyway, but Coach, he talked about linemen. And we were not talking about offensive linemen. He said he wanted to be a lineman.
I was thinking football.
Yeah, like working on power lines, right? Well, then not 30 minutes after we got out of there, Coach looks on his phone, and there it is, an advertisement for linemen. Being a lineman, like electrical lineman.
Clothes for a lineman. Like they were listening to our conversation. And I'm like, are we that important, Dev?
Yeah, because Coach, I've got to tell you something. Coach has no plans, nor do I, of being a lineman. None of us are going to be like, all right, we're going to go to the power company, screw the media company thing. We're done. We're going to go.
We're going to go be linemen.
Can I give you guys the technology interpretation of that, of why it's persisting?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, please.
So I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Facebook and, can they legally be implied that their intent was criminal? And so what the argument is that they offer.
Rob, you're supposed to stop by and say hi.
Tell Rob to come over here and say what's up, man.
He can't. He's got to get to his class, man. But he said he would stop by. Okay. But he's got business. Let him be.
He's a busy man. He's also a family man too. I don't have any kids, so I got time to be up late doing this stuff. I don't know if you do.
Hey man, that's the dream.
Hey, mine are grown. I'm glad. I get to play now. Now I get to do whatever I want. I went through all that. Glad I did it earlier.
But go ahead, Kyle. Finish what you were saying.
Well, I think their argument is, and if anybody's hearing this, please correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand and from Zuckerberg's explanation and from Amazon's argument, they offer an end-to-end encryption, meaning they don't know who you are, and they can't connect it back to your identity, but all they can do is search for keywords and then serve up relevant ads. They intentionally limit their knowledge of this exchange to just these very small things, to where it's simply serving up better ads. So Facebook, Instagram, their argument and the other platforms' arguments are, we're serving a better ad platform experience. And I would actually argue, by and large, because of how efficient and effective Facebook ads are as a marketing standpoint, where we can reach an audience for much less money. It's way less expensive than traditional media outlets. So they've created a slicker ad product, basically, from a marketing standpoint. I know that's, boring marketing.
SEOs.
That's the diabolical part of you, Kyle. That diabolical marketing mind in there. I hear it. I see it. But no,
SEOs,
I would argue
the SEOs, the keywords, like we just went on, both of you guys touched on it. The key words, like if I go in there and you know what I mean? Like, but it's got so to the point where we were just talking about, where it is creepy now. It's spooky how we're just talking, and then we're going to get ads on our phone after this about what we're talking about, or maybe flagged, or maybe, you know what I mean? They might nerf Bridging the Gap because we're talking about something. Things like that. I think it's just like there's a positive to it, because there's no gatekeeper right now, but there really is a gatekeeper. We're able to put it out there, but they're able to say, nah, we're going to keep you at this level. We're not going to let you get the reach. You know what I mean? And I think that's something that, like a platform of that sense, I think Ashley's on the line. What she said about the kid that made that what is it? I don't know, a chat room or something like that. That he's in a wheelchair, like, or something like that, and he made that chat room where the guy that did the shooting shot up the. They're preying on people. They're preying on people in those type of scenarios. So what I'm trying to get at is, like, we can make our own platform right now, but they can tell you, no, we're not going to let you get the reach to the audience where it's going, because we want you to see lineman ads.
Right.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I wanted to add this final part to that whole conversation about the listening to the phone. And like I said, I'll probably save the rest of it for next week. But I think it's interesting is they can listen to your phone conversation. Actually, this is going to tie into political marketing aspect of things. So and what you just said, Kyle, is interesting to me, because you said their argument is, oh, we can't put that to you. But then how are they getting the advertisements to you? Because they're saying, oh, go ahead.
It's an IP address. It's loosely affiliated to you, but it can't really be tracked to the person in the eyes of the law. Like, the government has a way of seeing the natural person, which, is generally identified with the social security number, and it's encompassed by a certain amount of private information.
Okay, so I like I said, see, even to me, I think that they gotta have something, even though I know they're doing an IP address, whatever, they have to know who they're getting it to, I think, because, what are you gonna do, get a general ad? And I was thinking about this from the political spectrum of, so now we're gonna have maybe potentially social media companies that, or not just social media companies, because before the show started, in the previews, I had Google. How Google tracks all your information. Like, Google knows when you get out of your car and then walk down the block and then get back in your car and drive over to 8th Street. They know all that. They know which stores you're going
to. They know how many
steps you took. And then I learned about loyalty cards. Why they want you to get a damn loyalty card so bad is because they take all the information of the stuff you buy, and then they and because the loyalty card will keep track of that, and then they sell that to market, so advertisers, so Facebook and they sell it to, like, Facebook and Google and all these people. So then you got to buy the product, which is crazy. So, like, they know. It boggles my mind. But the point I was making was politicians. If they're going to be able to hear their conversations, right? You're going to be able to hear politician conversations. I think politicians at any point could end up being exposed. Do you think that would make for more honest politicians? Do you think politicians would have to stop, like, talking about the crazy stuff the effed up things? Do you think we'd get more honest politicians?
The backroom talk?
I think so. Well, and I think that's exactly what they're experiencing with the Trump campaign right now, or the Trump people. They were talking to people in Georgia and other countries about investigating their political adversaries in the U.S. and, like, that's sort of getting really close to that line of impeding on an election process, using an outside country, asking an outside country to affect an election process. So So, who knows what's going to happen there. We're in this new territory, guys. And that's what, that's the message I think I have for this whole, scenario is like, this is yours to create. This American experiment's less than 250 years old. And if you go to Europe or any other places, the first thing you realize is like, they've had culture for 1,000 years plus, unbroken. And this is all very new. And the opportunity, when you do business with a first generation immigrant, which I had the pleasure of having over the last several years, a business partner from Pakistan with one of my previous projects. And like, you recognize like the opportunity that they see in everything that we've become sort of
take for granted. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So this is all of these things that we've mapped out today in terms of where there's a gap in government, where there's a gap in business. Like, these are all product opportunities, leadership opportunities, career opportunities for anybody listening to this right now.
Yeah, one more question. This has been a great conversation. I'm glad we had it when you reached out to us. I was like, yeah, that's dope, because you're gonna have smart intel for us to relay to our listeners. But in saying that, the power of this, like where we're at right now, like going into this election, is there something else that we're missing? Like we didn't know that there would be Russian interference before, so we're preparing, we're defensing that right now, right, for this election. But is there something that's creeping up that we don't know in your eyes? Maybe is there something there or something?
What's my view from my mountaintop?
Yeah.
I think there's two things: is that we have to recognize in a nation that's primarily economically driven, we vote primarily with our dollars. If you're going out and buying things from multinational corporations that are engaging in lobbying that you don't agree with, we see GMO issues and Monsanto issues with relating to food engineering and relating to chemicals and things around food. That's a mega lobbying company. If you don't support that stuff, buy from companies who support organic and buy organic products, and you're voting with your dollars long before you ever get to the ballot box. Now, that said, I think the political institution of the United States is very important, if only symbolically, and I definitely agree that we should all vote as informed voters whenever we can. I don't know about voting as an uninformed voter, because if you don't really do your research, at least to some degree, you're probably not utilizing your power accurately. I think if I have anything to say to that, and I'm definitely not the most politically astute person, but you got to vote from your heart, but primarily you got to vote with your dollars, because that's how this country.
Yeah.
I think morally, though, I kind of think morally when I walk down the street, and I got to know that the person I vote for is out there with me saying, yo, this is messed up. This guy sitting on this corner is a veteran, fought in a war. Of course, he made mistakes, but he can't go get help, or he can't, you know what I mean? Those things, to me, is how I look at like that process. Even though on that scale, to me, like just in my mind, I don't think the presidential scale has any, like our votes don't really mean anything. But the lower scale, like something that can be policed in our local, you know what I mean, local township here in Altoona, we can go down there and participate, and we can meet this person. We could say this is our, you know what I mean? So I feel like that morally, you have to morally, like you said, dollars to me, like money comes and goes. Honestly, you need it, and you want it. You want to do great things, but to me, like morally, I need to know that you're on that page, or leave me, just stay out of my path.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to add into this, just because of the conversations we've had tonight, to me, a lot of what we're talking about is a lot like science, and that it's a process of trial and error and testing ideas to figure out what's working. Because Kyle said something about how European countries ahead of us, have thousands of years of culture, and really we're just building off our country is building off the information that we garnered from whenever we came from over there, and we're testing and trying new ideas to get the best mix that we can get, the best result, I would say. And really, I don't think we're too far off from it. It's one of those things where if you have let's get Coach in here with the football talk here. You need a game plan. You need a game plan that you can tweak. I mean, maybe it's not perfect. You don't get the win, right? Maybe the Raiders fumble on the goal line, but they still win the damn game, damn it. But you know something? You got to say to him after that game, you give him that bye week, you got to say, hey, man, this is what we got to clean up. You can't fumble the ball at the goal line. And it's that process to make it more refined, I think, is looking at the mistakes that we've made in the past and the things that we need to, the problems that are coming in the future to make that best possible solution. And in terms of marketing, I think that it's something that we very much have to be aware of. We have to be aware of the fear and the danger that is coming, especially when this 2020 election is coming up. We have to be, as people, we have to be able to put our biases aside. This is the bridging the gap moment right here. We have to be able to put our biases aside, and we have to look at this from an objective thing towards well-being and that moral thing that Coach was saying. We have to look at it from our moral standpoint and say, is this right? Is this the right thing to do? And we have to take away, you know, Trump this, Hillary that, Democrat that, Republican this, conservative this, that, believe in this, believe in that, whatever that is. And you just have to look at it as we are all people. And that's all I wanted to say. But Ashley, with the final word,
she better
of the
not
episode,
talk about the Steelers.
says like the Steelers lost.
Ash, what are you doing, Ashley?
Like everybody liked the video if you're happy about the Steelers losing. But again, I want to thank Kyle for coming on the show. He has actually been a terrific guest. I don't know why I said actually. Actually, like I thought maybe he wasn't going to be good.
Anything to plug? You got
But-
anything to plug?
You know, I've been working on a few things. I got nothing specific. If you want to follow me, go to my Facebook page or Instagram page. Kyle D Marketing is where it's at. And you know, I'm all about helping small businesses, startups. I think people tend to shy away from contacting me because I'm used to doing big corporate stuff and they feel intimidated. But that's not the thing. Like, I want to help small business entrepreneurs and startups. That's what I want to do. That's what I love to do. So anybody's got any ideas, reach out to me. You know, let's talk. Message me on Facebook, whatever.
Hey, yeah, go. Like I said, Ashley's on here right now. You're in Pittsburgh a lot. You guys sit down and have coffee, but don't steal our client.
Yeah, don't steal our client. You can talk. We're gonna get that in a contract.
You guys
we're gonna put that in a contract. Like, we're gonna be like, all right, you can sit down, but you can't take her from us.
Put it in Ashley's contract.
I'd love to.
Kyle cannot steal you from.
No, I'd love to hear what you guys are up to and what your plans are as far as, you know, as far as your own services. I mean, I'm at the point now where, like, I think I'm in my last 5 years of actually being a marketer, and then from here, I'm just going to market my own brands and my own business after a couple more years. So, you guys link up with me. I'll give you all the knowledge that I've got.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that actually is something that we will have to get back to you on. And also, Ashley wants to let you know that you gained a new follower. But he said, guys, we're past that hour mark, and we got to wrap it up, okay? But like I said, I love y'all. Y'all have been great. This show has been awesome. Again, Kyle, thank you for coming on. One of probably the better guests that we've had ever. You know, so again, thank you for coming on. Coach, you know how it be. He's always here, living large and in charge. We're out of here, bridging the gap. Take care, y'all. Have a good night. See you.